Chalo, let's go live. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the theIAShub. Today is the 11th session of the free sessions where we are going to conduct the basics of geography. And the main aim of this session is to give you a clear-cut picture before you enter into optionals. So we have been dealing with this particular type of session since last 15 days, in which we have covered near about 10 sessions. Har ek session, the main aim is to give you very basic details of that particular topic in a layman language ताकि आपको समझ में आ जाए. So let's begin with today's session. And before we start, our geography optionals are going to start by the end of this month. The details of the course are given here. And for any details, you can also register there or call the numbers that are given here. So let's quickly begin with today's session. Today, we are going to deal with the topics of climatology. In the climatology, we have learned few topics earlier. Today, what we'll be doing is we will be learning about the topics of cyclones, right? So we'll start with the concepts of cyclones. I hope you guys are clear with few basics. Easterlies क्या है, westerlies क्या है. अगर आपको नहीं पता, whoever is there on the online, you can also go and watch the previous sessions that are there in this playlist, right? So our agenda for today is to learn about tropical cyclones. ठीक है? So any doubt online, you can post it into the comment section, and offline, as usual, you can ask me. So before I start, can anyone define me what is a cyclone? What is a cyclone? And how is it different from a cyclonic condition or cyclonic circulation? These two words we have used in the previous classes also. काफी time मैंने use किया था. That cyclonic circulation, anticyclonic circulation, convergence, divergence, ये सब चीजें हमने पढ़ा था. But how is a cyclone different from a cyclonic circulation? Please try to define it. Yes? Speed? No, speed is not. See, firstly, we have to understand the definitions of cyclone. Now here, cyclone is nothing but a low pressure system which has storm-like conditions, right? A low pressure system basically which is circulating and it has storm-like conditions. Now, Indian Meteorological Department defines cyclone as any wind which is rotating in the cyclonic formations with a greater than speeds of 60 kilometers per hour. So in the disaster management chapter somewhere across the NCERT, if you read, you will also see that cyclonic disasters are most widely available or mostly present in the Jammu and Kashmir and North Jammu and Kashmir region. But Jammu and Kashmir region mein mostly will not find tropical cyclones, but disaster management category mein that is also being part of it. So if you read the NCERT, you will get to know, right? So firstly, a cyclone is nothing but a low pressure circulation system where it has storm-like conditions. Now, cyclones can be of two different types. One, it can be a tropical cyclone, and other one, it can be a temperate cyclone, right? Now, what exactly is a tropical cyclone? A cyclone which is present in the tropical areas. That means these cyclones are present anywhere between 5 degrees north to around 30 degrees north tak, and 5 degrees south se lekar 30 degrees south. This is the area the presence of tropical cyclones are found, right? So can you recall a name of a cyclone in the recent times which has struck these regions? Anyone? If you can recall a name of a cyclone which is very much famously present in the current affairs in the last 2-3 weeks itself. Cyclone Freddy. ठीक है? Cyclone Freddy is also very active. But if you broadly look into, this is the time period for tropical cyclones nahi hai, it is the time period for temperate cyclones. So one such temperate cyclone, if you are in the northern India, today's rainfall is because of that the temperate system. Western disturbances. आज जो बारिश हो रहा है बाहर, it is nothing but temperate cyclone. That is in the name of Western disturbances they come to India. So Western disturbances, temperate cyclones, this is for next class. Today we will stick ourselves to the tropical cyclone, right? So what are we going to learn? We'll be learning about the formations of the tropical cyclone. Number 1, we'll learn the formation. Number 2, structure, structure of the tropical cyclone. We will also learn about how is the names of the cyclones are given, and also the impacts of a cyclone. These are some things which you need to know. Right? In the structure, we will also learn about circulation. Is it clockwise, anti-clockwise? So any doubts regarding the cyclone, our main agenda is to clear it all today, at least in the form of understanding in a layman terms. Right? Online, if you do have any doubts, you can post them. Now coming to the first formation of a tropical cyclone. Right? We'll come to the formations. So you tell me, what are the conditions that are required for the formation of a tropical cyclone? One, high temperature. If you have read your NCERTs, you will get to know that for the formation of a tropical cyclone, you need high sea surface temperature. So broadly, there are 5 conditions that you need to know. And out of these 5 conditions, all the 5 conditions are necessary for the formation of a tropical cyclone. Right? Temperature difference. Okay, before we start, let me show you how exactly the cyclone looks. So this is the tropical cyclone, and this is called the eye of a tropical cyclone, and this is how the circulation of the tropical cyclone takes place. Right? So India is on an average will experience 10 to 12 tropical cyclones, and the damage that it is creating is very high. Right? So it is also very important for us to understand the type of tropical cyclones that are there. Now these type of phenomena, you can see it in the coastlines of India. You can also see it on the coastlines of the United Nations, on the east coast of Japan also. Like that, in the tropical areas, you will come to see different types of tropical cyclones. And recently, there are 2 tropical cyclones which have made quite a good sound or quite a good news articles. One, a tropical cyclone that has brought storm surge. ठीक है, ये storm surge क्या होता है? Storm surge is nothing but whenever a cyclone comes and hits the coastlines, it also brings the oceanic water onto the sea, onto the landforms. Right? You can take the remote there. Yes. Next, recently there is a cyclone named Reddy. This cyclone, which was in the ocean for near about 32 days, and it is the longest tropical cyclone which you have ever got to see since 2006. See, there are some cyclones that originated in the east coast of the Indian Ocean, and they traveled across the Indian Ocean and then went and hit the coastlines of Africa, especially the Zimbabwe coastlines. This is the path of a tropical cyclone which you got to see in the month of February. So on the February 6th से लेकर February 24th तक. So ये इस type के questions exam में आने का chances भी होता है. Right? Maybe in one or the other form you'll get some questions onto the tropical cyclone, both for prelims and mains. Now the name of the cyclone is Reddy. If you see, this is longest lived tropical cyclone from the current affairs point of view. ये भी जानना चाहिए आपको. Right? We'll also discuss this and then its path and why does this happen. This is from the current affairs point of view. Right? So firstly, let's get into the conditions for the formation of a tropical cyclone. There are 5 bare minimum conditions that are required. First one is temperature. ठीक है? It is temperature of 27 degrees Celsius with large sea surface area. Right? This is the first condition. Temperature difference of what? What is the difference of temperature? So ये जो है, this is the first condition. Next, there should be a weak low pressure existing system. Weak low pressure system that should already be existent, and there should not be any variation in the speeds, large variation in the vertical wind speed. For example, if you take the column of an air, okay, this is at 0 kilometers and this is at 10 kilometers. You generally know that the speed of the wind is high at the higher atmosphere and low at the lower atmosphere. If the speed of the wind is very vertical variation जो है, काफी difference अगर है, then the formation of the cyclone do not take place. Right? So imagine the speed of the wind here is 10 kilometers or 10 knots. Here it is 500 knots or around 100 knots. So in such a situation, the formation of a cyclone will not take place. There should not be high variation in the vertical wind shear, right? So vertical wind shear is across the height of the air, there should not be much speed. This is an other condition, right? See, not much variation in the vertical wind speed. And this is also called as vertical wind shear. Okay, the same thing is also called as vertical wind shear. And there should be upper air divergence above the sea level. Okay, this is another condition, that is upper divergence. Right? And we are missing out one more condition. Can you recall and tell me? No or yes Coriolis force. Should it be there or should it be absent? It should be. Mandatorily, there should be Coriolis force should be there. ये 5 conditions है एक cyclone बनने के लिए. So now let us try to understand by using these conditions. If these conditions are present in any of those seas, then the chances of the tropical cyclone can be formed in that particular area. And remember, tropical cyclone formation is completely different from the temperate cyclone. Temperate cyclone formations are completely different. Now, what is the difference between tropical cyclone and temperate cyclone? Temperate cyclones जो है frontal formation के कारण बनता है. Fronts के लिए आपको air masses we have already studied. When 2 air masses come together or collide with each other, or their interactions, that will lead to the formation of temperate cyclone. But tropical cyclones, they are formed only on the seas, and that too they require all these 5 conditions, right? Now by this logic, if there should be Coriolis force is absent at which part of the globe? You know that if this is your earth, at which part of the globe do you find the absence of Coriolis force? Online? At the equator there is no Coriolis force. That means, do you see any kind of tropical cyclones at the equator? Equator पे कोई tropical cyclones नहीं बनता है. क्यों? Coriolis force is 0 at the equator. That's why you will not find tropical cyclones which are present between 0 degrees से लेकर 5 degrees north and south. So this is the area that is no tropical cyclones. And here you will not also find upper air divergence above the sea level. This is absent in this area. Upper air divergence above the sea level should be there. Now what do you mean by the upper air divergence? Suppose any air that is rising, it should move out. Okay? Air that rises, what happens? Anything that rises, it will start to expand. Whatever that expands, it will cool down. Whatever that cools down, it will condense. Right? So these are the conditions for the formation of a tropical cyclone. Now let's take a part of an area of the globe and try to study how exactly these tropical cyclones are formed. Number 1, let us imagine that this is a large sea surface area. ये मान के चलो, this is a sea surface area with water present, and imagine this is your Arabian Sea. ठीक है? In this Arabian Sea, first condition is that there should be a temperature of how much? 27 degrees Celsius. Imagine that this part of the area at a depth of 100 से लेकर 150 meters depth में, the temperature of the ocean is near up to 27 degrees Celsius, right? So now, exam में Fahrenheit, no, they won't ask you in all of these terms. See, one of the question here is that, sir, हम exam में Fahrenheit भी पूछ सकते हैं? No, they won't ask you. UPSC will not go into that detail. Now, first condition is that the sea surface temperature should be of 27 degrees Celsius. Now, at a depth of 100 to 150 meters, this is the should be the temperature. Now, when this temperature is there, slowly the water will start to evaporate, and the latent heat of evaporation will be there, and slowly the water will start to evaporate. That means the major source of energy for the tropical cyclone will come from the water, and that too this temperature. Now imagine there is rising air everywhere. Okay? This is how the rise of the water vapor will start to take place. Now let me consider this part as the tropopause. Imagine that you also have a area called tropopause. It is at a height of 10 kilometers. ये मान के चलते on an average, right? Now this is at the sea level, right? What should be the atmospheric pressure at the sea level? As we have discussed earlier, the atmospheric pressure at the sea level is somewhere around 1013 millibars. Okay? As you go high into the atmosphere, what should be the atmospheric pressure which is present at the upper troposphere? Right? How much? It is near about 300 millibars. काफी कम होता है, right? This is what you will find. Now, this is a temperature of 27 degrees Celsius, and till what extent it should be there? It should be there for near about 100 to 150 kilometers length. It should be present. Now here, whichever part of the area is extremely hot, the rate of evaporation will be high. And if this is hot and the rest of the sea is cooled, imagine now rest of the sea is cool and this part of the ocean is very hot. What happens? This will turn as a low pressure system, right? When this turns as a low pressure system, you will understand that the wind will start to move from every direction to this area, right? Isn't it? The air will slowly start to rise. Now the first condition satisfaction is that 27 degrees Celsius hona hai, and that to large sea surface area. Now coming to the second condition. Second condition is that weak low pressure system. Already there should be an existing weak low pressure system. Temperature यहाँ पे ज़्यादा है comparative to the rest of the sea. So this is nothing but a weak low pressure system should be there where the wind is moving towards this part of the area, right? Third condition, upper air divergence, not much variation in the vertical wind speed. Now, not much variation in the vertical wind speed, here it means that across the levels, imagine this is 0 kilometers, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 4 kilometer, there should not be much variation in the wind speed. At that point of time, what happens is that the rate of evaporation you will get to see little higher. This is how the rate of evaporation will take place. They will start to rise. Every area, there will be rise in the air. When the rise in the air takes place, once it reaches the tropopause, what happens? They will start to diverge, right? The air that has risen, it has reached the tropopause, and this tropopause, you'll get to see the divergence of air. So this divergence will be there in every direction. Okay? It is like this. Right? Now, look, this is how the air that has risen, it will start to diverge outward. But what about the air that is present in this circle? Or to our understanding, let me lower this. It is like a column, right? In this column, there is a pipe conduit or a pipe-like structure. The air that has risen, now imagine there is a ceiling, right? What about the air within this circle? What happens to that air? It will struck to the tropopause, right? Now where will that air go? कहाँ जा सकता है? The same air will start to descend. ठीक है? The same air which has risen, some part of the air will be diverged and some part of the air, it will start to descend back. Right? Now wherever you see the descent of the air, once it touches the tropopause, imagine the air that is rising, it is diverging in this angle, every angle, but some part of the air it touches to the tropopause and then it will sink. So the same air which is sinking back, wherever you see that sinking air, that part of the area is called as the eye of a cyclone. In the eye of a cyclone, you will find that there is descent of the air, subsiding air. This is subsiding warm air. Now, the green color area, whatever I told you, this is nothing but the eye wall of a cyclone. ठीक है? ये eye wall है. Right? In this eye wall, these are eye walls and this is the eye of a cyclone. ठीक है? Look, what exactly happens here is that the air that has risen, the same air is descending back. What is this called? Subsiding warm air. There is subsidence of air and this is called as subsiding warm air. ठीक है? So what kind of air do you see in the eye of a cyclone? The eye of a cyclone has subsiding warm air. Now, wherever you have subsiding warm air, there you will have clear skies. You will not find much rain. But rest of the area where you find that the air that has risen up, it is getting continuous energy, and this energy is converting into clouds. It will be like this. So, slowly there shall be a band of clouds that will be developed here. Let me use the green color. Like this, there are bands of clouds you will find. Why are these bands of clouds being formed? Why? Because air that has risen, it is diverging. Now, what kind of, is it a diverging air or a converging air at the bottom of a cyclone? Here you will find converging air. The air that is converged, it is rising up and then diverging. Now, this condition is nothing but the upper air divergence above the sea level. Now imagine that there is no upper air divergence. Upper air divergence means the air started to converge here from all the directions, and then the air started to rise. There is no divergence. What happens to that air? It's like this. So let us try to understand this condition. See, for suppose, imagine there is air coming from every direction at the lower end. This is how the convergence takes place, and then the air rises. Do you agree? Right? The air came, converged, and then they rised. Now what I did was, imagine that there is no upper air divergence. Upper air divergence means here there is no divergence. So when there is no divergence, what kind of conditions you see? Badal, there will be clouds formed here itself. Like this, there is a band of clouds that will be formed. Continuously there is air rising, and this will lead to the formations of cumulonimbus clouds, and these clouds will burst out. Is conditions mein you will get to see thunder storms. If there is no upper air divergence, lightning, bursting of the cumulonimbus clouds you will get to see. So the first condition which you have learned is 27 degrees C surface temperature. Next, there should not be much variation in the vertical wind speed. And the third condition is that any air that is rising, the rising air should actually diverge. If there is no divergence, what are you going to get to see? Thunderstorms, lightning, cloud bursts, these kind of phenomena. Now in the cyclone, it's not like that. Any air that is rising, the rising air, the same air that has risen, it will now start to form bands of clouds. These bands of clouds are like this. Now, till what extent these clouds will be formed? A band of clouds, until what time do you think they will be formed? Can they be formed for many days and months? Yes or no? Yes, months also. So, see here, ये है आपका tropopause, right? From here, you got to see the diverging air. This diverging air has turned into clouds. These are all your clouds, right? And this entire system is rotating. Why does it rotate? It is because there is a low pressure system. Here you have a low pressure system, and the wind is moving from all the directions. You know that what is the direction of the Coriolis force in the northern hemisphere? Right or left? It is towards right. Now, the tropical cyclone circulation is anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Why? It is because of the Coriolis force. Now let's see the next point, that is, what is the role of the Coriolis force here? To understand this Coriolis force, let me draw a different diagram which will give you a clear-cut understanding. Imagine that you have a low pressure system here. ठीक है? हम ये मान के चलते हैं that there is a low pressure system which is present here. Now, if there is low pressure, the wind will start to come towards this low pressure. It's like this. The wind comes from all the directions. It's not just one direction. This is the direction you'll get to see. Now, if you start to apply the Coriolis force to the wind that is coming from all the directions, it is like this. Now, this in the northern hemisphere, you'll get to see that. Let us also see the same thing in the southern hemisphere as well. You have a low pressure system. The wind will start to come from every direction, right? So let's try to apply the Coriolis force to this. See, the wind try to deflect towards the right in the northern hemisphere and towards the left in the southern hemisphere, right? So this is how the deflections are there, any wind that is moving. Now let's try to conjoin all this. Imagine the wind that is moving, it actually circulates, it is actually rotating in this direction, right? Isn't it? Now if you start to conjoin all the winds here, you will get to see that the direction of the rotation of the wind system is in clockwise, right? So this is how the cyclonic circulations, you will find them in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. Now is this clockwise or anti-clockwise? It is called anti-clockwise. Why is it called anti-clockwise? If you take a clock, you'll have 12, 3, 6, 9. The clock rotates in this direction, right? This is clockwise. It is actually rotating in the anti-clockwise direction. Now when you see this from the space, imagine when you start to see this particular area which is present in the surface of the ocean, when you see it from the top view, it looks like as if it is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction, right? So a cyclone in the northern hemisphere, it rotates in anti-clockwise. A cyclone in the southern hemisphere, it rotates in clockwise. Imagine that there is no Coriolis force that is present. When there is no Coriolis force present, the cyclonic circulations, you will not find them, right? So the same cyclone which you got to see here, it needs some Coriolis force, and this entire system is a rotating system, right? So these are the 5 bare minimum conditions that are required for the formation of a tropical cyclone. And in the tropical cyclone, you need to understand that where is the energy to this cyclone coming from? Yes? I? Not exactly I. कहाँ से आ रहा है? जो warm water vapor, that is condensation, latent heat of condensation से आ रहा है, और latent heat of evaporation से आ रहा है. As long as this system is present on the water, you will get to see the energy to the cyclone is continuously, it gets its energy. But once, imagine that system, if I take this system and put it onto the land, what happens? It will die. Now why does this same tropical cyclone, if it is present onto the continent, it is going to die off? It is going to die off because it is not getting any energy. The energy to the tropical cyclone always comes from the sea. As long as the cyclone is on the surface of the sea, it is going to intensify, it is going to increase its strength. And once it touches the coastline, it is going to dissipate itself. Now let's try to put this tropical cyclone system in the Bay of Bengal or in the Arabian Sea, and let's try to understand. So imagine, ये जो system है, the system will also be under the influence of easterlies or westerlies, right? These kind of structures you got to see. Imagine that this is your Bay of Bengal. ठीक है? Let me make it a little more smaller for our understanding. तो ये मान के चलते हैं, ये जो cyclonic system है, it is in the Bay of Bengal, right? So what kind of winds do you see between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn? Easterlies or westerlies? So let's put this system in the tropical belt. This is your equator. Okay, more. Let me. Okay. This is your equator, and then these are your tropics. This is your 0 to 5 degrees जहाँ पे Coriolis force नहीं है. What kind of winds do you see between 5 degrees north and 30 degrees north? Easterlies, right? यहाँ पे winds are in the easterlies position. Same is the case in the southern hemisphere also. Until this range, you'll find easterlies, right? Suppose you have a cyclonic system. That cyclonic system is present in the Bay of Bengal. Now, where it will go and hit? Let's see. Yes. So I'm going to put this cyclonic system. ये जो cyclonic system है, it is under the influence of easterlies. Under the influence of easterlies, easterlies will also experience Coriolis force in the northern hemisphere. If there is wind moving in this direction, it will move towards, it deflect towards its right under the Coriolis force. So this wind system is going to deflect. Now those winds that are moving in the Bay of Bengal, they do not go and hit on the same latitude. Imagine there is a cyclone that is formed on this latitude. It will never go and hit on the same latitude. It actually deflects its path. Why is it deflecting? Anything that is moving in the northern hemisphere, it will deflect towards right. Same is the case with the tropical cyclone. It will go and deflect and hit the coastlines of the eastern part of India. Right. Similarly, if there is a cyclonic system that is developed in the Arabian Sea, let me put, there is a cyclonic storm that is developed in the Arabian Sea. Will it come to India and hit, or will it go to the Saudi Arabian regions or the peninsula? See, it will not come to India. In fact, there are easterlies winds. Because of that, you'll get to see these deflect. Sometimes they do also show its influence onto the India also. Exceptional situations pe, one or two you get to see. Now, my question here is, I told you that if this cyclonic system is present here, now this cyclonic system, when it enters and reaches onto the coastlines of India, what kind of situation do you see? Rain. Why do you get to see rain? So Rohit says that there is rain, but why do you find that rain? You will get to see that rain because, see, there are bands of clouds that have already developed. Now these bands of clouds, whatever you see, they'll start to move. Imagine, ये जो cyclone है, under the influence of the easterlies, it started to move, right? So the same cyclone, under the influence of easterlies, this is going to move. When it starts to move, you will see that, imagine that cyclone has come and hit the coastlines of India. So just a minute. Imagine it has come and hit the coastlines of India, right? Now the point at which the cyclone comes and hits the coastline of India or coastline, any coastline, that point is called as landfall. Okay? Now landfall, see this landfall, wherever it takes, it is going to be it is going to create a huge damage, right? So ये already rotating system है, and this rotating system is under the influence of easterlies, and these easterlies winds will carry this entire system onto the coastlines. Now, what is the length of the tropical cyclone? ये जो length आपने जो देखा, the length of the tropical cyclone, this can be of anywhere 150 kilometers तक on an average आपको देखने के लिए मिलता है. That means there is a band of cloud which is 150 kilometers and it has some spillover effects. यहाँ पर भी clouds है, यहाँ पर भी clouds है. Rotating system है. When it comes and reaches onto the coastline, it is no longer going to get any energy. It is going to lose its energy, right? But whatever the energy it had, it is going to shed onto the coastlines. Especially on the eastern part of India or eastern coast of India, you will see that these cyclones are formed in the month of April, May, or else you'll also see them in the months of October and November. Why? Low pressure ka? Yes, very good. चाँद का कहना ये है सर पानी जो है थोड़ा गर्म भी लेट होता है और कूल, it will also cool little late. That is nothing but specific heat. ठीक है, in geographical terms it is called as specific heat. The concept of specific heat comes into picture here. See, usually the land on the continent will get heated in the months of summer. May, June. By June it will be very hot, the land will be extremely hot, right? But पानी का जो temperature है ना, it will be extremely hot in the month of July or August. ठीक है, sometimes into the late September, October also. By that time, it will attain its temperature of 27 degrees Celsius. Before that, it will not be having that temperature. So in the months of September and October, and sometimes in the early May, you'll get to see that the rise of the sea level is high. And when it reaches the 27 degrees Celsius, that is the time period where you'll get to see the formation of the tropical cyclones taking place. Now come back, we were discussing about the cyclone coming and hitting the coastlines. Now wherever you see this cyclone coming and hitting the coastlines, imagine ye jo cyclone jo hai, if it has come and hit the coastlines of India, now from here there is rain going to start. Now for our easy understanding, what I'll do is, let me divide this cyclone into wings. Okay? It is for only our understanding purpose. Okay? Let us consider this as A wing of a cyclone, this as a B wing of a cyclone. In between you have the eye of a cyclone. Okay? In the eye of a cyclone, you will not find any kind of clouds. It is a clear sky because it is having subsiding air, and this subsiding air, as it comes down, it warms up. Okay? That's why it is called as subsiding warm air. Now this band, when it touches this coastline, you will get to see the landfall. At the landfall, there is going to be large scale destruction. In the recent times, current affairs ki, if you look into, in the cyclonic conditions of the United States, there was a cyclone, and that cyclone has created a havoc. I'll show you the images of that, what exactly it has done. So before that, let me tell you, now ye jo conditions hai, imagine the cyclone has moved into this part of the India. Now this part of India will be facing very heavy rainfall with large wind speeds ranging from 60 kilometers a lekar 200 kilometers tak. Now based on the wind speed, you will get to understand that what type of cyclone it is. Sometimes this cyclone is also called as a cyclone of super cyclone bhi kaha jata hai. Orissa super cyclone aapne suna hoga. Cyclone Hudud has created large scale damage for the coastlines of the Visakhapatnam, right? But whenever this part of the cyclone has come and reached the land, that area will be having rainfall. Slowly the clouds spread, right? Now look here, the eye of a cyclone comes into this picture. For example, a person who is standing in this area, or he has his house in this area, as long as the cyclone is there, there's much of a rainfall and they won't go out. But look, this is an eye. Eye, when enters into this part of the area, it will be clear cloud, clear sky. You'll get to see some sunlight, and the sunlight can penetrate here. They feel as if, "Arey yaar, ab to cyclone khatam ho gaya." It is very clear and neat and nice. They wanted to go out for a date. ठीक है? Imagine in such a conditions, fishermen will go to the fishings, office workers will go to the office areas, and outdoor field workers might go to the outdoor fielding working area. In such a conditions, the eye of a cyclone will be having another wing which is waiting to create a destruction. Everyone will go to the work. In the due process, you will see that within no time, the eye might also cross. Just a minute. Okay, so imagine now our portion of India is somewhere here, right? So this is I. Now people who are living in the I, they will be having fun. They don't know that they go to the regular works, and again there is a destruction that is waiting. Large scale destruction happens after the I has passed away that particular area. In this due process, this I is also passed this area, and within no time you'll get to see the outdoor field workers who are on the outside, they will be subjected to large scale wind speeds, and within no time it will create destruction. Now here, if you look into the structure of the cyclone, a structure of a cyclone has an eye wall, and it also has cumulonimbus clouds which are formed on either sides. Along with that, you will also find a large sea surface temperature, subsiding warm air. These are the things that you need to write in the structure of a cyclone. And 5 conditions you have heard. Now here you need to know about few fundamental things that is called as landfall. Landfall hota hi kya hai? This can be asked in the disaster management as well. Recently, there is a cyclonic system that has created a huge landfall. So, ek cyclone ki karan, if there is a landfall, and if that landfall has created some kind of destruction, what major destructions it can bring in? What major destructions it can get in? Anyone? Kitna had tak damage ho sakta hai, as per your understanding? To what extent it can create a damage? A cyclone is coming and it brings rainfall, right? Large scale rain like the one which you have seen outside today, right? If you're in the northern India, a large, very huge impact of rainfall. You got to see wheat crop damage ho gaya. But most of the cyclones in India go and hit the eastern coast of India. So eastern coast of India has rice plantations. Now sometimes the water from the sea is also brought into the land. So water from the sea is brought into the land. How much damage can it create? Yes? Long-term damage. It's salty water. विपुल का कहना ये है सर लॉन्ग टर्म डैमेज कर सकते हैं. शॉर्ट टर्म डैमेज में क्या देख सकते हैं हम? Floods. To what extent it can bring floods? Yes, to what extent? Rivers can also overflow. I'll be showing a small video, which is a real video. In the recent times, you got to see this. So this was a cyclone in the month of late December sometime, where you got to see the inundation of seawater into the coastal areas. And this is the place where there was landfall that was happening, and that landfall has brought seawater onto the coastal lines, and that is called as landfall. See, look at the damage of the landfall that it might create. Usually we might think that cyclone आया तो थोड़ा बहुत पानी लेके आएगा ना, थोड़ा बहुत पानी तो नहीं. It will bring large scale inundation of water, and these inundations can create large scale economic, life, social and other losses. Imagine the scale of water of ocean that is entering into the continental area. In such a situation, what all damages you can account for? Just take a few seconds time and list it out. Loss of, चाहत का कहना ये है, loss of biodiversity होगा. Anything else which you can recall, Rohit? Infrastructure damage, very good. There's infrastructural damage, loss of biodiversity. Next, electricity that comes under infrastructure. Next, loss of life. Yes, that is the prime most you will get to see. Recently, there is a cyclone named Freddy. Freddy ne 32 days it is in the ocean and intensifying, continuously it was intensifying. The damage it created in the coastal areas of the Zimbabwe and also the eastern parts of Africa, it was very huge. Now currently it's hardly in the month of February it came up. February 6th को आया था, almost March 5th तक भी active था. बार landfall होते गया. Again it went into the sea, again it came back. Right? So these kind of activities can take place, but you need to understand that ये salt water है. Salt water, when they come into the lands, continental area, there might be crops. Crops will be submerged. Rice plantation is there. It is intolerant to salt water. So entire coastal areas across the cyclonic area, there you will see that damage of the crops. Food security का issue होगा. Right? Fasal Bima Yojana. Drinking water, very good. In the drinking water, what kind of situation do you see? Firstly, a sea water here. Sea water got mixed with normal water. So you do not have that basic necessity of drinking water. Every well that is there, every canal that is there, now it is mixed with sea water, with fresh water. When they get to mix up, you will get the waterborne diseases in the next 1 month. It is a series of entities which will be following when these kind of activities take place. Mostly, you look into the examination, the questions that are asked are not on explain the formation of a tropical cyclone. ऐसे नहीं. The socio-economic impacts are being asked. मतलब इस cyclone की वजह से क्या क्या हो सकता है? Landfall, it is into the disaster management. So the cyclone concept we will learn in very detail in the upcoming classes of the advanced classes. Now here my agenda is to give you what kind of situations can it lead to the socio-economic aspects में. So looking at this one, you got to understand large scale infrastructure damage, loss of life, loss of biodiversity, and also displacement of the people. That means in a very short period of time, you have to displace the people. Shelter homes create करना पड़ेगा. साथ के साथ आपको food, water and shelter you have to arrange. If you are the district magistrate, the disaster management that goes into the cyclone handling is very large and tedious activity. Multiple departments को आपको confidence में लेके काम करना पड़ेगा. And India के लिए this is a regular activity every year. At least 10 to 12 cyclones come and hit the eastern coast of India, especially the coastlines of Odisha, the coastlines of Bengal, and in the Bengal, more specifically, it is the Sundarban area. Sundarban area mein tigers are there, mangroves are there, right? So the government of India will tell you to plant more mangroves. When more mangroves are planted, it can stop the inundation of water into the coastal areas. But we don't know in which part of the coast it can go and hit. Every year there are cyclones. So kya karna chahiye? Should we go to stop these kind of cyclones, or should we have to adapt or mitigate? Adapt and mitigate. ठीक है? Coastal areas में rules and regulations regarding the building codes, you need to apply it properly. You need not go for erosion of the coastal areas. Large scale constructions will lead to the easy inundation of water. Building codes implement karo. If you are going to construct, ask them to leave the ground floor in the case of floods, those who can afford, right? Then you have to take care, as a government, you should need to take care of the people who are in these coastal areas. Shelter provide karo. Maybe on the back end, always have some stadiums with you, or large scale open grounds जहाँ पर पानी नहीं आता है, high grounds, low lying areas को आपको ये intimation दे दो. Ask the fishermen not to get into the sea, and also implement all the cyclonic codes that are there. Look at the large scale infrastructure that is present here. This is the case of US, and in India we do not see this kind of landfalls yet, but definitely we cannot say no that इस type की landfalls India में नहीं होगा, हो सकता है. Cyclone Hudud has created large scale destruction, there is no doubt to that. After that, currently you got to see the Faraday. ठीक है? Now let me show you a cyclone which was in current affairs in the last month, that is Cyclone Freddy, and it is considered to be the longest tropical cyclone which was there. Now why is it called the longest tropical cyclone? See, the more the time it spends into the ocean, the more it get intensified. The more the intensification, the more the damage. So I would like to ask you a question here. Is it possible for a cyclone that to form in the Arabian Sea, sorry, to form in the Bay of Bengal and then cross the Indian coast and then intensify here? Possibility hai? So do you think there were situations like this? Yes. Exceptionally, in the 2018, you got to see one cyclone crossing over the peninsula of India. So over a period of time, what do we get to see is that ye jo cyclonic system hai na, it sometimes do this kind of behavioral activity, very exceptionally, right? Now, look, most of the cyclones that come onto India are the ones which are formed in the South China Sea. They form in the South China Sea, they cross the isthmus of Kra, kyunki very small landfall area, and easily the system will get intensified again, and they come to the Bay of Bengal and they again intensify. Now imagine that there is a cyclone, which is present at 20 degrees latitude. ठीक है? अपना 20 degrees latitude, it will be somewhere here. ठीक है? This is your Tropic of Cancer, right? Imagine that there is a cyclonic system which has formed here. More specifically, you will get to see the presence of easterlies. These are your easterlies belt and this is your westerlies belt. You agree? Yes? When we have studied about the easterlies and westerlies concept, you got to know. So sometimes this cyclone, when it is formed near to the 20 degrees latitude, that means very near to the Tropic of Cancer. So if it will it go and hit in the same latitude? 20 degrees latitude pe to nahi hit karega, right? What happens is that under the influence, it will take a curve and cross that 24, 25, 27 degrees latitude, and then it enters into the westerlies belt. It's like this. Let me zoom in and redraw this. So imagine that there is a cyclone which has formed here, right? And this is your 23.5 degrees latitude, and north of this mostly you might find westerlies belt, right? So this cyclone will not go and hit on the same latitude, it takes a curve. The cyclone will take a curve. While taking curve, it can cross that area and enter into the westerlies belt, right? Now the same cyclone which went into the westerlies belt, it gets deflected towards its right while it has to travel. Again it deflects towards its right, right? So ye jo cyclone hai, which is not fully dissipated, some amount of the energy is still with the cyclone because A cyclone is a very large wing, 150 to 200 kilometers width. Now this system, while it is traveling, some part of the cyclonic system is still under the sea, and it might again take a recurve under the Coriolis force. If this is westerlies, if it is moving in this direction, what is the Coriolis force direction? It is towards the north or towards the south, right? It is always towards the right, right? तो ये मान के चलो मैं ये नॉर्थ मानता हूं या साउथ मानता हूं. So it is actually towards the right, right? It is moving in this direction, so it is towards its right. So this cyclone, again, it will come into the Bay of Bengal and it will intensify. Now when it intensifies, it will be more strengthened. Now the same cyclone might come and hit the coastlines. दो बार लैंडफॉल हो सकता है. एक ही cyclone, first it went and hit, and the same cyclone can take a recurve, come back, and again hit the coastlines. Now this is called as recurving of the cyclone. In the recurving of the cyclone, usually the intensification of the cyclone takes place, right? As long as the intensification is there, the destruction is very evident. Now in India, on an average, at least one cyclone will take a recurve. ये Indian Meteorological Department का data कहता है, right? So these cyclones take a recurve, again they intensify and they come back. Now these cyclones can also be present in the Bay of Bengal, in the Arabian Sea. Sometimes you will also see these cyclones across the coastlines of USA also. Now they are given different names to them. Now if the cyclone is formed here, they are given different names. Now what are the name that is given to the cyclones on the western? It is eastern coast of USA, it is hurricanes, right? This is hurricanes. Now that type of cyclones or normal cyclones, when you find them on the east coast of Japan, what are they called? Typhoons. Okay, they are called as typhoons. Here they are called typhoons. If they are found on the Australian coast, यहाँ पे, they are called as willy willies. Okay, like that, different names are given. In Indian coast, it is tropical cyclone. So same cyclone, it will have different names in different latitudes on different coastlines. So typhoons on the Japanese coast, tropical cyclones in India are nothing but tropical cyclones, hurricanes here, and then willy willies also, they are named different names you will get to see, but the phenomena is this same, right? So landfalls is some kind of destruction you will get to see here. Now there are also questions that are asked on naming of a cyclone system, how the cyclone is named. See, cyclone, if you see, I have shown you the cyclone Freddy. ये जो cyclone है, cyclone के लिए नाम है, अलग अलग cyclone के लिए नाम होता है, ये नाम करना काफी important है और अच्छी चीज भी है. India started its naming of cyclones only after 2010. इससे पहले we are never used to known of naming the cyclones. So international meteorological departments, when they came together, especially in the coastal areas of the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, they have decided that let's start to name the cyclones, right? Now why should the cyclones be named? Comparison करने के लिए, very good. The cyclones to be named because they should be compared. No two cyclones are same. They have behavioral patterns which are different. To understand that behavioral patterns, cyclones are named. Suppose this is cyclone Freddy. 10 साल के बाद अगर आपको कोई डेटा चाहिए, अरे यार कुछ ऐसा साइक्लोन है by the name Freddy, उसका डेटा अगर available है, we can say that cyclone Freddy, which started on the February 6th formations on the eastern coast of eastern side of the Indian Ocean, it traveled across the belt of Indian Ocean and then came under the influence of easterlies, came to Madagascar, crossed Madagascar, then entered into the Africa. This is how you can study them. So the current cyclone might also follow the similar path. And naming of a cyclone is very important because we have research data, right? So all the countries which are present across the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, they have decided that from now on, let's name the cyclones. उस naming के लिए ना कुछ conditions ले लिया उन्होंने. They have taken the conditions that if we are naming the cyclones to be named with some conditions. The name should not be affiliated to any political party and कुछ religious नाम नहीं होना चाहिए. ऐसे अलग अलग. And like this 13 countries came together, and out of these 13 countries they have decided that every country will give 13 names in priorly. ठीक है? For example, I am India, I'll give a list of 13 names. You are Pakistan, you'll give 13 names. You are Bangladesh, you'll give 13 names. Why? Why only these countries? Because any cyclone that is formed in the tropical area, they will either hit any of these coasts. Okay? Now look here. Broadly, you see, these are the countries that are bordering either the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea. Right? For example, India has already given 13 names. And Bangladesh has already given 13 names. Now the naming is like this. For example, today there is a cyclone. The cyclone will be named as Nisarga. Okay? If there is a next cyclone, it will be named as Gati. It is given by India. If there is a next cyclone, it will be named as Nivar. Like that, after 13 cyclones have been finished, again the name will go to list 2. That is, Bangladesh has named Bipara Joy. India, Tej. Like this, already the names of a cyclones are given, and it is taken by whoever is the chairperson of that meteorological department associations. They will be given the task. Now it is very, very important. There was a question that has been already asked into the general studies as well. How are cyclones named, and what is the significance of the naming of a cyclone? Right. Now there can be questions on disaster management also. Landfall के बारे में पूछ सकते हैं. Cyclone management कैसे करना चाहिए? Because cyclone is a disaster which is taken into account under the atmosphere. Disasters can be classified into one, those disasters that are formed in the atmosphere, those disasters that are created on the water. Now cyclone is a disaster that is categorized into atmosphere damage, because the wind speeds in the cyclone is near about 60 kilometers plus. Only then it is called as cyclone. So any wind of that category, it will be categorized as a cyclonic wind. Right? So mostly these kind of wind speeds, you will see high wind speeds in the coastlines of Jammu and Kashmir. So इसीलिए Jammu and Kashmir also sometimes shown as cyclone affected area. ठीक है? Why? Wind speeds ज़्यादा है. Disaster management category में that is categorized into high wind speed cyclonic category. Right? Now let's talk something about this cyclone Freddy. Cyclone Freddy, मैंने ये कहा था, it started on February 6th and then came to Madagascar all the way. It took near about 20 odd days here, but it sustained itself in this ocean for 32 days. 32 days में कितना intensification होगा? Lot of intensification. So that intensification of the cyclone, what did it do is that it has even crossed the coastlines of Madagascar. It even crossed the entire coast and again re-intensified here. The re-intensification took place like this. Let me show you. See, on February 6th, it started. Dates and all are not important, but my agenda is to tell you the strengthening of a cyclone कैसे होता है ना, practical understanding. What is the distance here? 1500 kilometers का distance है ये. 1500 to 1800 kilometers की distance. Now this distance it has crossed, and southeast coast of Madagascar में it even crossed the coastlines of Madagascar and entered into a new area. So the damage that it caused, especially in the Mozambique and Zimbabwe area, it is unrevocable. मतलब irreplaceable damage है वो. इतना ज़्यादा damage था. The country has now gone into a deep state of infrastructural emergency. ठीक है? So management of cyclones is very important, and India के लिए कोई नई बात नहीं है. So current affairs में you'll get to see that cyclone management India is teaching to the coastal areas. This is the article that you will get to see. Right? Now that article, why? Because we train ourselves. Every year we get to see some cyclones, and those cyclones or either on the east coast or west coast. ठीक है? Broadly speaking, this is what you need to have a brief idea about the cyclones, and more specifically, you will have a different type of cyclone, that is your temperate cyclone. This temperate cyclone will deal with it in the next class, right? And come back. I hope you are clear with the concepts of these 5 conditions. इसमें कोई doubt है? Clear? That is 27 degrees Celsius होना चाहिए. कोरियोलिस फोर्स का पूछना हो तो एकदम, which one? Freddy is not, it's not in the straight line. See, this is a broad image. This Freddy, it is in the southern hemisphere. ठीक है? While it is moving, it will deflect towards its left, right? Look, you might feel like ये same latitude है, नहीं है. Let me show you. Did it not deflect towards its left? ये southern hemisphere है ना, ठीक है? Got it? So it keeps on deflecting. Northern hemisphere में अगर ये यहाँ पे form होता, so it will go like this. This is southern hemisphere. This is a straight line. Deflections. Got it? Now coming back to the conditions here. 5 conditions. Nothing more can be asked from the topics of cyclone. Maybe in the main classroom we'll learn in little more about the core of a cyclone, that is nothing but the eye of a cyclone, the intensification, latent heat of vaporization. In technical terms, we will be understanding it. More or less, this is the concept that is involved into it. Online, any doubts? Reasons how cyclones will become into super cyclone. Now, this one good question that Sumant has asked, sir, what are the reasons why a cyclone will convert into a super cyclone? See, super cyclone is nothing but any cyclone which will have wind speeds more than 100 kilometers plus. Okay, 120, 130, some cyclones are even 160 also. So they are called as super cyclonic winds. Firstly, what is a wind? To come to this answer, you need to be little systematically understanding this. What is a wind? Can you tell me what is a wind? Wind is nothing but movement of air. Why is that wind moving? Why is the wind moving from? Yes. For example, this is place A, this is place B. Why is the wind moving from A to B? It is because this is a high pressure system and this is a low pressure system. When it is a super cyclone, the speed of the wind is 100 plus kilometers per hour. This is what I told you. Now, why does the speed of the wind is 100 plus kilometers per hour? It is because if the intensification of the low pressure is strong, then the speed of the cyclone will also be more. And secondly, the difference in the pressure, if it is very high, and that difference is present between less distance. Imagine, यहाँ पे जो low pressure system है 990 millibars मान के चलो, यहाँ पे high pressure system है 1013 millibars. ठीक है? It is like this. The wind will start to move from this place to this place. Suppose within the same area, here if you have a pressure system of 890, what happens? This is a very low pressure system. What about the wind speed? It will increase. The speed of the wind is always dependent upon the factors of the difference between high pressure and low pressure जो होगा वो अगर बढ़ गया, that means the gap between high pressure and low pressure, I'm talking about the gap of what? The difference in millibars, if it is more, and also the speed of the wind will also be more. This is as simple as possible. Why does a cyclone turns into super cyclones? Because intensification of the low pressure took place and the wind around them is traveling at a faster rate. This is the reason why you will find the super cyclones being formed, and it is very rarely you'll get to see. Recently, you'll got to hear about a term called bomb cyclone. Bomb cyclone सुना नहीं है? Current affairs पढ़ते नहीं हो आप, है ना? What is bomb cyclone then? Just a minute. Six days ago, why does the weather term bomb cyclone mean and it is coming to Massachusetts? What do you mean by that? बॉम्ब साइक्लोन मतलब ये बॉम्ब साइक्लोन कोई नई बात नहीं है, काफी पुरानी चीज है. सी सपोज इफ यू जनरली गेट टू सी द डिफरेंस इन प्रेशर, ये मान के चलो द डिफरेंस इन प्रेशर विद इन अ 24 आवर टाइम पीरियड it has increased. For example, आज इस एरिया का लो प्रेशर सिस्टम 990 मिलीबार्स मान के चलो, 24 घंटे के अंदर अगर 24 मिलीबार्स का प्रेशर गिर गया तो उसको कहते हैं बॉम्ब साइक्लोन. Within 24 hours, the low pressure system intensified very low. If the low pressure system intensifies, then you will get to see large scale destructions. Now this, see here, read this. What is a bomb cyclone? Rapid intensification of a mid-latitude cyclone. This we'll learn in the temperate cyclone. Mid-latitude cyclone is nothing but temperate. We have to learn it yet. This is a new term which is in news articles. Intensification represented by a rapid drop in pressure. Kitna? In order to classify as a bomb cyclone, must be 24 millibars drop in 24 hours. अगर 1000 millibars यहाँ का pressure है, 24 hours के अंदर 24 millibars drop हुआ. That means what will be the pressure there after 24 hours? 976. 976 millibars अगर है वो bomb cyclone है. So these terms, mostly you will see these kind of questions can also be asked in the examination. That's it regarding the tropical cyclone you need to know. 5 conditions of a tropical cyclone, recurving of a tropical cyclone, why directions of the tropical cyclone, eye wall, and then the clouds. Clouds are cumulonimbus clouds, good rainfall, there will be bands of cyclone. The cyclone has an eye is a calm wind, and then on the other sides there will be large scale destruction. So people are not aware about the cyclones, and because of lack of awareness during the eye time period जहाँ पर एक location पे होगा वहाँ पे people go out for work and then they get damage because of another wing that is waiting to create a damage. So broadly on a normal scale you need to know this. In the advanced classes we'll learn in little more detail about that. Right? Clear? Any doubts? I hope online this topic is clear to you. And the optional batch is going to start soon. Please, if you wanted to join, you can get the registration here. The numbers are given, and I'll share my contact number too. If you do want to have a one-on-one session, you're most welcome. This is my contact number, and my name is Madhusudan Reddy. See you guys.